Hello, everybody, and welcome to the LFC Transfer Room live stream with myself, Kev, Dan, and Ben. How is everybody doing today? Dan, we'll start with yourself. How are you doing after a very uneventful weekend that has just occurred in the transfer market?
Oh, I'm absolutely wonderful. I'm beaming with joy. I have my head held up high, and I'm waiting for my new jersey to arrive. I was ready to celebrate this week. I'm just nothing but good vibes. It's been great news all around.
Yeah, it's been fantastic news. No bad news to speak of at all. Kev, how are you doing, my friend?
All good, mate. All good. Good weekend. Last week in work, so all good, mate. How are you?
Oh, I'm good. No complaints at all. I'm very happy with our dealings over the weekend. Nothing to complain about whatsoever in any way, shape, or form. How about you, Ben? Anything to give out about, or anything that you want to get off your chest, or anything? Are we all okay?
No, very good, very good. For me, it was just good to have football back, wasn't it?
Yeah,
you know, it was just so good, and I don't think I'll be the only one with who's still a bit tired, let's say, from the football this week.
Yeah, I lost a lot of sleep Thursday, Friday. I don't know what that was about, but
I don't think anybody. I think it was a global thing. I don't think it was just you. I think everybody. There must have been some sort of a global phenomenon going on at the time. So
Men in Black, I think.
Yeah, definitely, or in blue today. But we'll say no more about that. Obviously, everybody kind of knows what we're alluding to with the fact that we have a bit of transfer drama that occurred over the weekend in relation to Moises Caicedo and how he is now, as of this moment, a Chelsea player, considering we just put in £111 million for him. But moving swiftly on from that, as he's not a Liverpool player, he won't be a Liverpool player, so he's out of our minds at this moment. So that'll be the end of that for the rest of this stream, he says very hopefully. On to other topics, however, which seems to be a trend of the past 72 hours. Romeo Lavia, I'm afraid, has decided to tell Liverpool to get stuffed, for lack of a better term, and has decided to then join Chelsea, who, funnily enough, if you do remember over the weekend, also got Moises Caicedo. Not sure if that was anywhere on Twitter, but might have snuck under the radar. Ben, I'll start with yourself. With regards to the whole fiasco that has befallen us over the past 72 hours more, who would you pin the blame on in relation to this? Is there any one particular person, or is it just it's free game? Everybody's fair game. Like,
I just think that it was the approach to the Caicedo deal. It was so low, like. There was just no chance of it. It just came from nowhere, didn't it? It just it just was there. And I think that had we have maybe put in more legwork on that deal, and banged a couple more drums and let it be more vocally known that we wanted him, it might have had a different outcome. And then obviously with the Lavia situation, that was it's rare, isn't it? That, just from knowing how we operate as a football club in terms of doing business, it's very rare that we kind of tell a football player that, we're interested in them and then don't back it up. We do always tend to go back for them. So I do think from a Lavia side, he has just basically put his middle finger up and went, nope, you've had your chance. And, that's it. You've blew it. I don't think there's a single individual to blame. I think it's a kind of like I can never say the word culminative of people, and I just think it's been really, really, really bad strategy from everyone involved.
Yeah, I personally think it has a lot to do with Paul's comment here in relation to this. It's all well and good trying to put money in for a particular player and everything, but if money seems to be the be-all and the end-all of these transfers that are going on at the minute. And before I move on to anybody else, I just want to point out the fact that we have over 180 people in here already. That's nuts. We're not even 5 minutes live yet. So please do like and subscribe if you're not new here. Please do subscribe. It helps the channel. It helps us make more videos like this for yourself. It grows the community, and we always want to give back to you guys with more and better content. And even if you are here and you have subscribed already, please do like and everybody share. We're just at the cusp of 200 now as I'm speaking. This is madness. 5 minutes into it. Thank you so much, guys. Dan, yourself, is there anybody in particular that you would place blame on, or is it as Ben said a collective of heads that need to roll, or is there anybody in particular? Is there any changes you'd make to the transfer personnel that it is other than bringing back Mr. Edwards?
I think the problem is with this transfer saga that just happened and this transfer window in many ways, and even going back into last year, is that we're dealing with a very complicated situation that is bound by policies, personalities, and obviously, the limitations of our club to some degree, which are somewhat self-imposed and somewhat just the nature of other things around us. In particular, Caicedo, I don't think there's really any blame on Liverpool for trying to go out and get him. If Liverpool reach out and they say, yes, he will come to you, and we put the bid in and he doesn't come, we did what we needed to do. We can argue that we should have put more work in, and I think there is an argument for that. But for all intents and purposes, no one thought we would be in for him because Chelsea tried to sign him in January. Chelsea tried to sign him over the summer. So if Liverpool go in at the last moment and try to hijack it, that's perfectly within our capabilities. We did the same thing with Luis Diaz at Tottenham, where all the terms were agreed. We went in last minute because Tottenham were negotiating. We said, we'll pay Porto up front. We'll pay you a much better upfront fee so you can cover your waiver costs as well. And we will take over the transfer from Tottenham. If Liverpool were told no, he's going to go to Chelsea, they would have never put the bid in. We would never be talking about as well. When it comes to the Romeo Lavia situation, it really comes down to this philosophy that Liverpool have, which is value. Not how much money do we have, but do we value this player at this current price? And you can argue that we need to put our money where our mouth is and just solve the problem. And I think there is an argument for that. But Liverpool's policies has always been from Michael Edwards to who came up with Michael Edwards? I forgot his name now.
Julian Ward.
Julian Ward. Thank you, Kev. I always forget Julian Ward. He was only there for a little while. Everyone buys into this idea of value in many ways. The problem with all of this in many ways is just how public it's been. Normally, most of these stories from Liverpool's days past, going all the way from, since Association Football existed, was not an open topic, but we saw all the sausage being made in front of us. And some people have taken this to look at us looking like clowns. My whole take on this is the fact that it doesn't matter who's to blame. All that matters is that we move on and we get the next bodies in forward. We can't feel sorry for ourselves. No one at Liverpool should feel sorry for himself. York shouldn't. Jurgen shouldn't. Anybody at that transfer committee, John Henry, Mike Gordon, FSG, everyone, no one can look around and say, we need to feel sorry for ourselves. We need to move on, and we need to just get the next player, because we sit here and we try to point fingers and get blamed. Nothing's going to get done. So for me, they all share some blame, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter because we just need to move on and get new players.
Yeah, it's next man up kind of an attitude that we need to have. It is quite shocking how far we've fallen in terms of grace and everything like that, with regards to how a professional outfit that's as lauded and as well funded, regardless of how much we spend at Liverpool, is, of how far we've falling down the pecking order in relation to our transfer options. And Kev, just a question that came through here from Jay Muse in the chat that I'd actually give to yourself, if you can read it here. Did giving Klopp more power in the transfers make the process here harder, or was it the fact that we didn't have a sporting director?
It's a combination of factors. It's a combination of Michael Edwards leaving, no actual plan in place. We've gone with a rather not in-house appointment, which, for the best term, was just going to be another yes man. So the start of this process was when Michael Edwards left, because Julian Ward didn't have the ability to say no. We then move in to this. Now, if you look at it, the last 18 months, we've had 3 director of football that have come in. The current one is about as useful as a chocolate teapot. Can only deal with release clauses. Can't actually do anything. This weekend, how have Liverpool come out of a weekend where we've inflated the market so much that we come away with nothing? and we are now in a position where we've let everyone know how much money we've got left, and we've got nothing to show for it. And now we're all kicking off that Lavia once needed to come in for 60 million. And he's definitely not worth it. But we are now in a position where we've inflated our own market by simply trying to be Johnny Big Bollocks. We walk in, Stoke up with 110 million out of nowhere. And it's an absolute joke. What should have happened over the last 24, 48 hours is, while that was working, instead of just being in the office and doing absolutely sweet FA until Brighton come to you, what we've done is that we should have been out and getting a bid ready and prepared for someone else if it all goes tits up, which is like what it's done. And that's where the chaos that we see off the pitch is continuing here. We've lost all the analysts team. Some are being recruited by other Premier League teams. We've got a man in power who is stubborn, and that will be Jurgen Klopp. Now, some of this falls on his door, and some of it falls on FSG. Why are we waiting for Mbappe's situation to resolve at PSG before we've even decided to contemplate coming in with 110 million? And if that was there, why didn't we go in when Caicedo could have been bought for 80 odd million with add-ons to 100 million? So this shows the chaoticness that's going on behind the scenes, that it's shown, that we've seen on the pitch last season. It's a debacle, and I fully expect at some point we will see Hendo and Fabinho going as the reason that stopped us and prevented us from bringing players in. It's annoying from that point of view. We've wasted 48 hours for a player that we knew weren't going to come, and haven't done anything about it other than see Mr. Billy Big Bollocks turn up yesterday as though like that was the biggest thing and that's going to change everything. It's nothing. We should have been in talks straight away and trying to sort things out. And we've scuppered the Lavia deal completely ourselves for being an absolute joke. But hey, what do I know?
It's a funny one, all right, Kev, to be perfectly honest with you. And as well, what I'd like to just acknowledge here is Yoshimitsu. Caicedo is not embarrassing, but Lavia is. However, we need to move on. Play Fiorentino Luis, release clause, and tie up a deal for Andre in January. First of all, thank you so much for the 20 Canadian dollars. That is very generous of yourself. And we very much appreciate it, and it helps and goes straight towards this channel and helps us produce more content for the likes of yourself. So we really, really do appreciate that. Thank you so much. Also, just to mention, we've over 500 people in here at this moment. It's bonkers. It's clear, and we're only 12 minutes into streaming at the moment. So thank you guys so much for coming in. Please do leave a like, please subscribe, and if everybody shares this, we'll have 1,000 in here by this time tomorrow as well, and that will just help grow the channel massively. It's all on Kev, really. It's only since he started talking, the views went up straight away. That's what we'll put it on.
I very much doubt that.
I mean, it was on 300 when you started, and now it's on 550. So we'll see if
you got the main man there, Dan, and your good self.
As you mentioned, Kev, something that I'll post to everybody and everybody in the stream here and everybody in the chat as well, is that you mentioned release clauses. That seems to be the only thing that we can get done. And I jokingly called us release clause FC to a couple of mates of mine. And realistically, if you think about it, if we were release clause FC, there's a good few players out there at the minute that have release clauses. If that's all we can do, it's not like the market's thin on that level. We have the likes of Inacio, the likes of Florentino Luis. We have what's the gentleman from PSV that was between ourselves, Bayern and PSG?
Sangare. Ibrahim
Sangare, who's him as well. There's plenty of players out there that are able to go and we can pay a release clause, but it's infuriating, to put it one way, considering how well funded and well run we used to be and what we were used to seeing. And now to see us practically get made fools of over a weekend on the first week of the season. I think we need to go and get Michael Edwards and give him a blank check and tell him go nuts. Because there was reports that came out from the likes of Paul Joyce that said that we were offered Enzo Fernandez for, 15 million euro, something around the lines of that, back in summer of last year. And then Chelsea went and spent 100 and something million on him then.
But Steve, just on that though, sorry to interrupt.
Oh, you're okay.
Why are journalists coming out when the fan base is already fueled up as it is? Why are you throwing more canisters on the actual fire to make it more explosive? Is it just for the clicks? Is it just for the money that they'll get from it?
Fabrizio Romano made $2,000 off one tweet. He had his thesaurus out. He had the thesaurus out. And if you'll notice, every tweet that he let out, and we don't want to slander Fabrizio by any means in this group, but he had the thesaurus out and he just kept going and changing certain words. Something that I'd also like to point is we just got another little donation there from Maddie. Thank you so much, Maddie. I've been a massive critic of the owners, but I don't think that they're the ones who've been responsible for this disastrous window. People need sacking. You're right. They do. People do need sacking. And to be perfectly honest with you, I think that whole transfer room and transfer staff should be gone out the window. They should be cut ties straight away, and Jorg should be fired from a cannon over the Mersey into the Irish Sea, to be perfectly honest with you. That's my view of him after the past couple of days. Thank you so much for the £5 or the £4.99. It's very much appreciated, much the same as Yoshimidu's one earlier. Very, very much appreciated. Thank you. We've over 660 people in here at the minute again. Please do like and subscribe. This is bonkers numbers that we're doing at the moment, and we love to see it. Thank you so much. Moving on from our disappointments with Romeo Lavia and Moises Caicedo, we have a couple of other options, one of which we just recently found out that, as mentioned here by You'll Never Walk Alone 66, Bournemouth have just agreed to their release clause of Tyler Adams. So while it's laughable to say that we've fallen as low as Tyler Adams at 20 million for a release clause, it could have at least offered us some depth, but he's Bournemouth bound. There's not really much to talk about there other than a missed opportunity. He's not going to be a Liverpool player. There's not really much truck in our interest in relation to him. But in relation to other players that we may get is the likes of Palhinha from Fulham. Dan, with you, £70 million seems to be the rumoured amount that was floated about earlier on in the transfer window. If we're willing to pay £111 million for Caicedo, would you even consider Palhinha at £70 million?
No. I mean, the whole thing about this 100 to 111 million pound transfer that was submitted to Brighton is that Liverpool are very much willing to pay for a player they believe is going to essentially come into the team and dominate. So, when that transfer came in, what was it? What would have been Thursday night, Friday morning for you guys as well. It just shows that Liverpool are willing to fork the money up for someone that they believe wholeheartedly is going to absolutely transform the team. Palhinha is a good player. I think he would come in and be very solid, but not for £70 million. It's not when you need to sign more than one player. Obviously, yes, a defensive mid is the most urgent thing ever that we need at the moment. But you would rather, I know me and Harmony have said this a million times and people have said in the chat, you would rather go back and, sign a Florentino Luis or someone that, you would rather take a punt on who is statistically is more of a closer to a Fabinho or a Rodri than someone like a Palhinha, who is a good player. And I would love Palhinha. If we could get him for £40 million, you can get him for £35 million, you can get him for £45 million, that'd be an absolute steal. And he would come in and, we already look amazing. We just lack that stability and that shape and that recovery that we just don't have right now with both Thiago and Bajcetic out at the 6. So for me, Palhinha, no, not for 70. Not to Fulham. I'm not going to be held over a barrel by Fulham.
I mean, we've been held over a barrel by Southampton, who's a championship team. Fulham, at least.
Oh yeah, but we did. But at least we didn't spend $60 million for Romeo Lavia. I'd feel like an idiot if we came in here and we had to somehow justify $60 million for Lavia.
Paul Joyce said we were willing to spend £60 million on him. So
yeah, I'm willing to spend £1 million on a car. It doesn't mean I am, or that I have the money.
Yeah, that's very true. Ben, in relation to Palhinha, is the injury concerns what would really put you off that rumoured £70 million fee? And if so, is there any sort of a fee, much like Dan mentioned with 40 million, that you'd be comfortable with? Or do you think we should start looking overseas outside of the Premier League for players?
I don't know. I just think that we're owed more. We're now owed more than Palhinha. And I think 70 million is just far too much. for where he's at in his career as well. I think that you are looking around that 40 million pound mark, but again, there's just the market's crazy, isn't it? And it's difficult to even. I honestly, I can't even think of, outside the box. I can't think of many people that just come in and are already at that level, where they slot right in. But I don't think Palhinha is 70 million pounds worth of football player. Absolutely no chance.
No, I would agree with you on that in relation to the injuries as well, with his shoulder injury, much the same as Rasmus Højlund with his stress fractures in his spine. Like, I've had stress fractures in my shins from having shin splints, and me, without being a professional football player, with all the physio and treatment available to me, I was out for 12 months. I couldn't do any sort of an exercise for 12 months. Stress fractures are not something to be joked about or laughed at. And the fact that their medical team seen that and still signed him is testament alone to why you should definitely listen to the medicals and listen to the injury side of it. Kev, there was a comment here that was mentioned in relation to some options for signing instead of the likes of a Palhinha or anything like that, with the likes of Doucouré. Now, CJAG doesn't seem to rate Sangare or Inacio. They seem like the bare minimum to them. With Doucouré, do you think that could be a proper option in relation to a DM role? Or now we mentioned him a couple of weeks ago. I personally think he's a bit like a centre-back playing defensive midfield. But then again, you need to take that into a bit of context in relation to what type of team he's playing into. So realistically, do you think Doucouré is going to possibly help us? And just as Jen said, I think you can sort this. And thank you so much, Jen, for the £5. And I think everybody in this group will agree with you that we need to get Big Kev in there now. He'll sort them all out. He'll start banging heads together and he'll get Liverpool back on track. Thank you so much for the £5, Jen.
Do you know what? It's a shout, and there are going to be alternatives to what we want. I'll be honest, a lot of these names that are coming up, not many of them will be on your first choice, but we now got ourselves in a dilemma where we've got 3 weeks left, and these are now going to have to be possibilities. And as I said, we've got a list that possibly will go round the couple of times, in which we've seen, as you've pointed out, Gravenberch is on there. Doucouré has done well for Crystal Palace, but again, it's going to cost us about 60, 70 million to bring him in. Now, I would have that on a back burner, and I'd probably then be looking at alternatives. I wouldn't be all putting my hand out there straight away. I'd be putting feelers out to see what's going on, to see if he would be relatively keen to come. As you say, if he's got that centre back in him as well, you could possibly utilize that to use that versatility, which is what we've seen with the 2 signings we have got, which is a lot of versatility in there. It's an option, but I think there'll be better options out there. But I wouldn't say no to him if it's the last week of the window and you put me in a corner and we do need to bring someone in. And I do hope we don't get down to that stage, but I do hope that we have alternatives and we have a priority list, and he's probably one that I'd keep on the radar and keep tentative looks at, and then maybe go in and see it, but put the feelers out, see how much he'll be. Sangare for 35. The only issue with that is I do think you're going to have to bring someone else in. I think we've mentioned in our chat that he'll go to AFCON. So any African players that anyone's thinking of, you might as well think that we need 2 in for whoever comes in, because we are going to need them. We're going to need cover for them from then. Jake Spearden's about, isn't he? Still in the under 23s.
Yeah.
So you never know. A little Scouts Mascherano in there, aka. No, as I say, I'll keep it on a back burner. But why aren't we looking in South America? The place where you'd expect to see some fantastic defensive midfielders, the likes of a Javi Mascherano. How come we can't go to the like of a Fluminense, or we can't go to like a Santos, or we can't go to any of these clubs and find something? We're always looking in the middle of, the middle of Europe and all like that. We need to be right in there, but no, Cheers, Jen. I look like Milner. Thanks. Can't do the laxative challenge though.
Well, look, Brighton have a very young, interesting prospect with quite a lot of veteran leadership in him, in James Milner. And he's done well in the lactic test, as we've mentioned. So maybe we should go and sign him for 80 million. Brighton might just use us and sell him to somebody else, though. But that's a story for another day. I'd just like to point out as well that we've over 850 people in here at the minute. Before we move on to the next topic, that's fantastic. Thank you so much. We're up on 880 people now. It's absolutely great to have that many people in here watching us. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't done so already. But if you have done that, then share. And if you've done all three, thank you so much. We love you loads. Something that I caught my eye as well is in relation to the release clause FC. Florentino Luis has a release clause of less than what we were willing to pay for Caicedo. I mean, would it be worth it? Do we think that that's something that we could go towards? Is seen as we just got utterly priced out of the Caicedo business. Tane Jones, thank you so much for that, for the Jacore Andra Safarman. I'm assuming these are all names. The font makes it look very weird.
Kamara,
yeah, thank you so much for the €5. It's very much appreciated. As we said, it all goes towards the channel and helping make more content for you guys. We very much do appreciate it. Thank you so much.
It's weird for Steve just to hear you say these names, so I'm all for it.
I mean, the font made it look funny. It's check the BR. Andrea, so I think I'll embarrass myself.
Sofran Amrabat, Boubacar Kamara, Florentino Luis, Ibrahima Sangare, Yusuf Fafana, all great names. I love these names. All
great names.
Except for Amrabat. Except for Amrabat. I don't want to be near Amrabat. Give him to United. He seems like a United player. Someone who's ever priced in will probably turn to be a little bang average.
Oh, okay. Charlie says because there's flags. That's why I can't see it. So it's clearly like emojis and stuff like that. Doesn't show up for us, unfortunately. So there's me making a tit of myself for no reason in front of nearly 1,000 people.
I haven't seen a lot of this Florentino Luis. How good is he?
Oh, he's very good.
He's very, very good.
He's very, very good. He could be on the same level as a prime Fabinho, in my own personal opinion. And for that amount of a price tag in this market, I think paying that release clause. FSG have shown their hand. We now know they have 111 million at minimum in the bank waiting to go that they've sanctioned. So if that isn't spent by the end of the transfer window, I believe heads will start rolling left, right, and center. Speaking of transfers, we have Sangare, who plays for PSV in the Netherlands League, the Dutch League. And there is talks with him at the moment. The three teams that he was linked with was ourselves, PSG and Bayern Munich. Bayern Munich have since pulled out of that race and declared they don't have any interest into Sangare. And just as I say that, we've just gone over 900 people in the stream. Thank you so much for watching. And I know we keep repeating it and mentioning it, and we're over 930 now. I know we keep repeating it and mentioning, but please do like and subscribe. It's absolutely fantastic that we're getting this many numbers at the start of the season, and only good things will come from this. So thank you so much. With regards to Sangare, Ben, it's a £32 million release clause. PSG have apparently opened talks with him already. Is this squeaky bum time now and it's time to just go pay the fee and go get him? Or do you think is there any way we could kind of compete with PSG, considering they're after getting €100 million for Neymar, the greatest waste of talent and best brother you could ever have, according to his sister?
To be honest with you, though, I think if it is a shootout between us and PSG, then surely the player would come to us. I think at 32 million quid, I actually think that's a good price for a player who, going forward, even if it never worked out, and he never had the best time with us, you'd still probably recoup a lot of that. It seems to be like a bit of a risk-free signing. So we should definitely be amongst it. However, you just don't know, do you?
You can only really go off what you see and what you hear, and unless you're watching it day in and day out, like we will be watching in the Premier League, you can't necessarily judge a player off that. And something that I would point out that I believe I've seen it here. Somebody mentioned about their not being able to match PSG in relation to what they could offer in a salary, and we agree. And something that we discussed in the group earlier was it was mentioned by Charlie, is that while we would love to pay these players left, right, and center, we're going to end up like Chelsea, and Chelsea are only going to have maybe a year or two's grace out of this, if even, before the most serious of sanctions start falling down on them. We hope, but it's a bit hard to have any faith in FFP or profit and sustainability rules these days, considering what's going on around us, and we seem to be the only people going and adhering to it. Dan, with yourself, with the likes of Sangare, is there anybody else in the current transfer market that we've been linked with or should be linked with that we should be looking and going and paying a similar amount for? Is, as we mentioned, like, do you think we could compete with PSG? Maybe not in relation to salary. What more could we offer in like a legacy, as we mentioned earlier in streams and previously? Klopp has mentioned to the likes of Coutinho before he left for Barcelona that if you stay, we'll build you a statue here. If you go, you'll just be another player, and that kind of came to fruition. Is the pull of Liverpool, when we have to compete with wages and pay alone, is the pull and the lure and the aura of Liverpool waning in this past couple of years?
No, because if you think about it, do you guys remember when we had a final bid for Lavia rejected? Do you know how long ago it was?
The 48
last
million.
week, wasn't it?
It was only a week ago. Yeah. It was only a week ago. So, in a week we went from going into not even being in for Caicedo, still negotiating with Lavia, to not getting both. So a lot can change in a week, and even within 48 to 72 hours as well. I don't think it's an issue of pull or finances. I actually think we pay some of the best wages in the world compared to like PSG, Real Madrid, Barcelona. We have one of the biggest wage bills in the world. So it's not an issue of pull in that sense as well. It comes down to a question of, what does Ibrahima Sangare want? If he wants a really high wage and he wants to go to a club that's kind of a mess, he can go to PSG. That's fine with me. The player that but also if he wants to come to Liverpool and he can play a role, if he wins his headers, wins his duels, and he can pass 5 yards to Szoboszlai, to Trent, or to McAllister or Jones or Thiago or any of his teammates, if he can do that, then I think he would be perfect for this team. That's all we need. The player I think right now that's between your Ibrahim Sangare and your Florentino Luis is Youssouf Fofana. I think you just go get Youssouf Fofana from Monaco. He's 24. He's 6'1". He was Aurelien Tchouameni's partner at Monaco. He's a very, very solid player. Again, he's probably not going to come in and be like the best number 6 in the league. But really, right now, we don't need the Rodri, or even before we got linked to Caicedo, we didn't need the Caicedo. We needed someone who could come in and give us a platform in order to play from. And even from that Chelsea game, you can see if we just have someone to give us a platform, we can blow teams away. I mean, that Chelsea game showed how much quality and class we have on the ball and how much talent we have both in attacking positions and also now in the midfield, even though we are missing 2 midfielders at the moment. So for me, it would be Youssouf Fofana would be the best option.
Yeah, I would tend to agree with you on that. Like, I think we're all kind of at the point now where we want to sign somebody. We've done our business very early, and it's a little bit silly now at this point that we're just kind of sitting on our hands and sitting on our laurels, and it's just a bit frustrating. And as we see, as you can see here on the screen, we're 8 subs off 8.8 thousand, 35 likes off 200. Please, we'll try and get to hit those levels now by the end of this stream. This is absolutely fantastic. There's over 1,000 people watching at the moment. Thank you so much all for joining. You're very welcome here, and we hope you stick around. We stream every day at 7:30 in the evening UK time. Sometimes that may change here and there. We're also planning on streaming twice on a Saturday, when we can, where the Premier League's fixtures allow it, and whatever other Premier League fixtures that we have, and also other games that will be coming up midweek with the likes of Europa and with the likes of the Cup games, because we've got 27 possible games between now and Christmas, so lots of streaming to be done between now and then. We're going to be working overtime. It's going to be great. Ben, Something that I think needs to be mentioned is the players that we were mentioned with earlier on in the transfer window, the likes of Kepler and Thuram, who was also in the academy with Tchouameni, and the likes of Manu Kone. With Kepler and Thuram, obviously, apparently rumored to have been asking for the sun, moon, and the stars in relation to wages, having been only on €16,000 at Nice, and then wanting to add a zero and bonuses on top of that. We've also been linked with the likes of Pavard as well, who was mentioned that he struggled in his game against RB Leipzig because his head was elsewhere. He was out dreaming of the beautiful Mersey River or that big
old
building
toilet
up in Manchester that's old. It's realistically at this point, I'll just come straight out and ask it. Is there anybody at this point that will be your dream signing? And if so, would you consider them to be realistic? And if not, who would be the realistic dream signing if you had one between now and the end of the window at the end of the month?
See, I got a bit excited today when I heard Tchouameni. There was possibilities in that. He would be my dream signing, albeit I think there's about as much chance of that than there is, getting the 6 numbers on the lottery tomorrow. Just not going to happen.
Yeah.
It's funny, isn't it? Back at the start of the summer, it just seemed to be Thuram and Kone. That was it. That they were the ones that we were all banging the drum for. They were the ones that we all really wanted. And to be honest with you, I think if that was going to happen, it would have happened already. So I just don't think either of them will come now. I genuinely believe we will literally end up with someone like Tyler Adams. I know he's got a Bournemouth, but I reckon it's going to be a low profile because I just think that with history we are very risk averse. And going with what Dan was talking about earlier, value in the market. And I just don't see us getting, anyone of note. And I know that sounds bonkers, but I just think that's where what will happen. I could see I could see John Henry putting his wallet back in his
vault.
Yeah, back in the vault, and see how it goes in January, because I think they have made it quite. They have said there's no value in the market, and I think that I actually am concerned that we're going to get someone and it's going to be very underwhelming. So as much as great as all these names are, Florentino Luis, Czech Ducore, all them sort of names, I just don't see us getting anyone like that. I just don't.
Yeah, it's kind of getting to squeaky bum time at the moment, and it's us thinking like. The more the days go on, the more we're kind of like we're probably going to end up with nobody here. Like it is genuinely that shocking.
Someone actually made a joke that Kev might get a game for Liverpool.
I'd start up CDM. Are you joking me? He'd somebody. I'd love to see him. We'll put you in against the next fixture against Chelsea when they come to Anfield, and just there's a particular player that will be playing CDM. If you wouldn't mind, just breaking his legs. But no, we don't wish injuries on any player. We don't want to put any bad karma out like that. That's not something I do myself. We hope he succeeds at all of his Carabao Cup appearances and all of the non-European Cup games he's in. It'll be great. Kev, a question that I'll pose to yourself. Two-parter a little bit. We seem to be, because I do love giving you the curveball questions. We seem to be only focusing on certain players that will be in the Premier League, and we haven't necessarily focused outside of the Premier League. Fair enough, we got Szoboszlai, but again, that's a release clause. McAllister was the other signing, again, a release clause. There seems to be release clauses all over the European market in different leagues, the likes of the Portuguese league with Inacio, the likes of the French league, and with the Portuguese league as well, and the likes of the Dutch league, with Sangare. And so there seems to be plenty of talent out there with release clauses attached to them. So it begs the question. This will be the first part of the question. It begs the question: should we start looking overseas in relation to our transfer strategies and away from the Premier League, where you're going to be gouged for price purely because it's your competition selling to you. So they're obviously going to try and outprice you and make you spend more than you want. And then the second part of that is, if we don't get the players we want and we don't get a CDM, would it be time to look at possibly a formation change? Maybe a 4-2-3-1, have a Gakpo sitting as like a false 9, a 10 sitting behind Nunes. I think we discussed this earlier on in the summer too, and then have your two holding midfielders there with something similar to how Chelsea lined up against us with their three, your two wingers, and you have a central attacking midfielder there as well. I think a formation change is needed, because then what if you look at the heat maps that occurred for the Chelsea game, Robbo's just gone kamikaze and running up and down that left side and leaving it as a back two when Trent decides to go inverted. So I don't know how long Robbo's going to be here. So we'll circle back to the question. Do you think we need to go overseas with our transfer strategies, and do you think a formation change is on the cards, even if just for the Bournemouth game to see how it works, or do you think it should be more permanent?
We should have already been doing this already. The problem we've got is that we wanted people to come in and not be given the Fabinho 3-4 months before you walk into the first team and you start playing. We wanted people to be on the get up and go. I think we've gone past that, and we should, no matter where we go now, after Friday, everyone's aware of how much we've got. So it doesn't matter where we go, we are going to get inflated prices, and more so than what we initially would have had we not done what we did and come away with nothing. Yet we could kind of done it behind scenes and try and get something, but to come out the way we have done, and the way Klopp has mentioned that we've agreed a fee with Brighton, when nothing really was actually done apart from we'll accept that. That's about it. Nothing else has been agreed. We should be looking elsewhere. We should be all over the Andre deal for myself. I know people say he's not a number 6, but you educated me the other week on that, Stephen, in the fact that the ground he covers and progressively how he plays would benefit us in the short term, especially now, and I would allow us then with more money to then go and get a left centre back. And if we were to get Andre, no doubt it'll probably be less than what Chelsea have played for Lavia, and I think we get a better player and a stronger player through it. So there are benefits of us not getting Lavia. Let's not hide from that. I think a formation change we'll probably see the last 10 games of the season, because that's how Klopp does it. We don't necessarily are flexible. We should be looking at alternative ways. If we don't get these players in, my formation is going to be this. But we know what Klopp's like, his stubbornness for playing certain positions, certain ways in the way we play. I would offer that, but then do we lose something if we do play a 4-2-3-1? Do we? I quite like the fact that we've got Salah, we've got Diaz, and we've got Jota and possibly Nunes. But I think it does need to be a bit of a change. We should already be doing that, and what I was looking to see in pre-season as well, and then with alternatives coming in, we've gone past the stage of looking at Premier League players. We need to be looking elsewhere, and if it means that we have to get release clauses, then just do it. But I would be all over Fluminense now, and I don't care if they're in the Copa d'Oro Libertadores and they think they're gonna win it. I'm gonna give you 45-50 million for your player now, and I'm gonna take him because we need him more than what you do.
Yeah, I think we should have pulled the trigger on that release clause, even if it was to get him here by January. It should have come, and just as we note here, we're nearly at 1.1 thousand viewers. That's nuts. We're on, there's 1,000 people watching you, Kev. It's all for you, baby. But there's nearly at 250 likes. These are bonkers numbers, and thank you so much, everybody, for watching. It's very much appreciated. Thank you so much. With something that I'll pose to everybody here, and I'll go round again. I'll start with Dan first. Give Kev a break. We see that there was a Tchouameni interest, and it's so eloquently noted in the caption and the title of the video is Tchouameni bid. But that was so evidently shut down very quickly, 10 minutes after there was interest shown that he doesn't want to move and Real Madrid will want to sell him. We're kind of running out of options here, Dan, when you think about it in relation to people we can bring in? Is it time to just, start banging on the door and demand an FSG, start coughing up some money that we know they have, and start paying a couple of release clauses that pull us out of the fact that we have to negotiate with anybody? Because as we so evidently seen, the 2 times we tried to negotiate with somebody in the past 4 days, we've been left looking like tits, for lack of a better term. I think it's time to just start paying release clauses and not dealing with any of these teams or agents, and definitely, as Kev mentioned, move the hell away from signing players that are in the Premier League as it is at the moment.
Yeah, well, I would like to point out that Southampton's technically not in the Premier League, so they were negotiating with the championship club, and they were probably expecting those negotiations to go a lot easier.
Oh, that just makes it worse.
I know it does. I don't. It's the one thing I don't want the transfer committee and specifically Jurgen to do is panic, because when you start panicking, you start making bad decisions. That's how you end up with Artur Melo at the end of August for that on his wage and everything else, and then he only gets 13 minutes in the Premier League. So it could be a situation where they pay a release clause and negotiate for someone else. I know Kev wants Andre Trindado as soon as possible. The thing is that I don't think Fluminense will negotiate or agree to a fee until they're out of the Copa Libertadores, and that's fine, because Fluminense get to compete for things as well, and that's kind of part of any buying a player, is that you, unless you're Chelsea, you have to at least respect the other team for the most part. I think what tells me about the Caicedo deal, though, is that we can move very, very fast for any player that we get a deal for. If you think about in a hypothetical world for that Moises Caicedo deal, we agree a fee at midnight. They were going to have the personal terms were agreed in principle. They were going to have the medical and him sign the contract literally that day. So whatever player we negotiate, regardless of the negotiation or release clause, whichever player we get, we can move very, very fast for. And that's really the most important thing. What we have now from now until the end of the window is that whoever they choose to work with, if it's a Fofana at Monaco, which I think is a real possibility, because AS Monaco just signed Dennis Zakaria not more than 30 minutes ago. So they do have defensive mid cover. So there may be something moving along those lines very shortly. Whoever Liverpool decide to go get, you have to move very, very quickly. And don't panic. Don't make a panic buy. Don't buy someone that's just not going to do anything. Yes, we want to get players. And I know I've said, you have to get the right player. You have to get a player, but you can't just go out and, let's say, go buy James Milner from Brighton Hove Albion for $5 million. We can't be doing that. We can't be going and getting, Tyler Adams for $20 million and that be our only signing, is my point.
Yeah, it's. I think things need to change, realistically. And as we look forward to the game against Bournemouth at the weekend, I think things need to drastically change. Just from review of the game yesterday, I know Klopp said that it was a temporary formation, Ben, but realistically, it was a bit of an uninspired performance outside of the first 20 minutes. And if ever there was the need for a CDM to go in there and hold, or even a formation change, or everything. And something that I'd like to point out, Andy, is that he could, but the shot that he had that would have gone top bins took a deflection, and only for it took that deflection, that ball was going in the top right-hand corner, and everybody would have been calling it the goal of the season. So go back and watch that replay. I will stand by Núñez, and that's a hill I'll die on. He could have very easily gotten the goal of the season in his first 10 minutes of being on it. Ben, just to kind of go back to what I was mentioning to yourself, how drastic of a change do we need to see? Is it way too early to hit the panic button? Is it all right to kind of get a little bit nervous? That too nervous, or what do you think at this moment in time?
I was quite vocal in how I was expecting yesterday to go. I generally thought we were going to batter them. I said it on the stream a couple of days ago, but it was so clear that the back line needs a lot of protection, and it just wasn't there. The midfield really, it's crying out for a tank to be put in front of that defence. Now, we are looking for a tank, but I just do not know what tank we can buy that is going to give us immediate results. Because don't get me wrong, that game yesterday would have been a completely different game had we have had a proper number 6.
To be honest with you, I don't even think the number 6 would have changed that. I think the formation up front was the issue in relation to that. I genuinely think that if Darwin Núñez started that game, we would have been 2-0 up by halftime, maybe even 3-0 up by halftime. And people can come at me in the comments in relation to that if they think I'm wrong about that. That's fine. Again, it's a hill I'll die on in relation to Darwin. And Coco TV, you can say that he was poor, but he was played completely out of position. That's not Gakpo's position. He's not a midfielder, and he done what he could have done in that particular position. The same as Alexis McAllister, who was possibly the best CDM we've had in a while, who isn't even a CDM, was playing there. He was fantastic, and Szoboszlai had a very quiet yet very productive game. He'd done it very much on the sly. He'd 90% pass rate. He had a number of recoveries, 3 chances created, key passes, and he done all that, and you didn't even see him do it. It was hilarious to see because he was just quietly one of the best players on the pitch. But I think if we had a Núñez who would, and I think I said this after the game as well yesterday, that Núñez would put the fear of God into the back line because of his pace, which is what I think we need to do against Bournemouth going into the weekend, is start Núñez up there, have Gakpo sit beside him, have Gakpo come short, back to the goal, receive the ball and distribute. Then you have Diaz on one side, Salah on the other, and then you have Núñez sitting in the middle then. And I'm shocked, to be honest, that Núñez wasn't starting, given him and Salah's connection over the preseason. Kev, do you see any drastic changes coming with the Bournemouth game on Saturday, or do you see very much the same? We're just trying to hammer a square peg into a round hole.
I think what we'll see I think what benefits us is that we're at home. We're playing Bournemouth, one of the lower teams, so that it gives you an option and an alternative to the style we play. I agree with you. I got obsessed with how Jota played, but should have realised that he's better coming off the bench and probably better to go with Núñez. But I think before the game, I think anyone, it's easy with hindsight to say, well, we should have done this. I think anyone could have come up with a combination of a front 3, and there'd be no reason for you not to start them. So it's a tough one, but I don't think we need a 6 for Saturday. I think we just go out all out attack, guns blazing, and go with 4 or 5 of them up front and just cause mayhem. I'd probably put Trent in the middle with Basic or someone like that, and I'd probably just go over alongside McAllister and just go with the flat 4 at the back, and the rest just do what you can do and just cause mayhem, because I think we'll get our chances, and that's what we need to do. I kind of agree with what Dan said before. I think it needs to be highlighted is that we don't need to be all like gung-go now and going in and start doing silly things in the transfer market. I think it needs a cool, calm approach, but time is running out. People are losing patience, but for me, that's what it needs now. It needs a calm head now, in especially in a place where the officers are, where it's all going off, and mayhem needs someone to take 5 steps back and just take a calm look at things and realize. For me, I would love us ideally to get Camavinga or to bring in Valverde, and they would be my 2 out of the worldies. It's never going to happen, but I'd be happy with Luiz or Fofana, as people have said. But I do want money aside for the left centre back. I think we need a left centre back as well. We need to shut up shop on that side, especially if we continue with this formation that we're playing. But Saturday, I'm expecting us to score quite heavily and to show our actual firepower up front.
Yeah, I think so as well. I think it's about time that we just started lacing some balls into the net. And as we can see here on the screen, we're only 50 subscribers away from 8,900 subs. So if you haven't already, please do subscribe to us. We've had upwards to 1,000 people watching the whole way through this stream. Thank you so much for joining us. Please do like and subscribe if you haven't already. And if you've done that, please share as well and get some friends in here watching this as well, so we can try and get some better content out to you guys. Thank you so much. The thing that I think in relation to the weekend game, and obviously we'll be touching on this more later in the week and closer to the time, and do some lineup predictions and everything like that, which is as we will be doing every week throughout the season. I genuinely think I don't think Jota can start another game this season. He's too streaky for me. I think Núñez did more in 20 minutes than Jota did in the 60 or 80 that he played. And wow, okay. Just like to point this out. Thank you so much, Brian. $50. Thank you so much for that. Not sure how FSG is not to blame for this mostly. We spent a ton of prep on Jude Bellingham and then we're told we couldn't spend the money because we needed multiple players. Now all of a sudden we have over 100 million for Caicedo. Seems odd. Cheers, boys. Thank you so much for that, Brian. That's very much appreciated. That's absolutely outrageous donation. Thank you so much for that. It goes straight towards the channel itself and how to help. And just to your point, the reason the Bellingham deal fell through wasn't due to the fee. We were happy to pay the fee. It's everything that came after that. It was done the rounds on Twitter in relation to how much the actual contract itself cost. He's getting 400,000 a week after tax. That's not including bonuses. He's also he got a 20 million sign-on fee. His agent got 20 million sign-on fee. His dad got 20 million just for sprouting him.
Concentration.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
And then there was on top of that, then there was the fee itself. So realistically, when you work it out, that fee, inclusive of everything, comes to about £500 million. That's bonkers. And we already seen it with a lesser player in Kepram Thuram, that he rumoredly wanted over 150,000 per week, and he's only on 16,000 at the moment in Nice. He wanted more than double of what Konate is on at the minute. His French national compatriot, who's actually played for France and won trophies with us. That's just bonkers. And all it takes is a bad agent like that to do that. And we've seen what bad agents can do with Caicedo over the weekend, unfortunately. But while I do agree that it was a little bit of a shot to see £111 million come out for Caicedo, it was more along the lines of the money in relation to the deal itself, the contract, that I feel that Real Madrid were just able to pip us on. And that's fine and well. If a player wants to go and get more money to be paid elsewhere, that's fine. I'd like them to own up to it and not say to the media that it was never about the money, when realistically everybody other than you knows it was about the money. But that's a rant for another day. And thank you again, Brian, for that massive donation. It is actually, it's great to see that. Thank you so much. Before we come to the end of the stream, I'm going to pose a very early stress prediction, shall we call it, by January for everybody here in the stream and everybody in the chat as well. So what we'll do is I'll go around. I'll start with Kev first, get him out the way first so he can relax for the end of the stream.
Nice one, mate.
And then we'll go Ben, and then we go Dan. So on a scale of 1 to 10, and I'd like everybody in the comments as well to put this in of on a scale of 1 to 10 where they are in this. On a scale of 1 to 10, very briefly, how high are you on the panic meter, and why not should we be worried? I'll start with yourself, Kev.
I'm on a 5 at the minute. There's still just over 2 weeks left in the transfer window. There's still plenty of time for us to get work done. I understand that we've wasted majority of this waiting for things to happen and to boil over. But for me, I'm not panicking as of yet. I will be panicking if we've got 2 days left and we've still got no one in. It's like bingo. It's like the bingo numbers. We're just waiting for that number 6 to land, aren't we? So it's for me. I really am not panicking as of yet. I wasn't at any point concerned about what was going. My only concern over the weekend was the fact that we weren't actually trying to get an alternative in. That's where my frustration comes into it. We should have had a plan B straight away immediately. So when it did go tits up today, we were immediately there and go out bang and it gets done, a bit like a Slobberslike kind of deal. That's what I was expecting. I expected the team to be getting something done, and I reckon we will. But I'm at a 5.5 at the very most at the minute.
And yourself, Ben, what would you rate yourself out of 10 in a stress level? And if you think we need to hit the panic button, if yes, why? If no, why?
No, I think for me, I'm higher, Kev. I'm towards an 8, and the reason being for that is it's become quite clear that there's no contingency. There's no contingency planning that seems to be obvious to see, and I do just think that I really hope it doesn't happen, but I do genuinely see John Henry putting that wallet away, and putting the wallet away, and he won't spend that money unless they are 100% certain because of how much value they like in the market. So I'm concerned that we're not going to get what we need, and I think that with a small squad, what we've got now, we're going to struggle if we don't make signings.
And yourself, Dan, the ever calm presence on this live stream and air of positivity, on a scale of 1 to 10, where would you see yourself on the panic meter? And is it time to hit the big red button, or is it time to take a step back, as you mentioned earlier, and have some cool heads?
Well, that's just my suggestion. Obviously, if people want to absolutely lose their shit, they can go ahead and do it. I'm not here to tell anybody how they should feel about Liverpool. Listen, I'm a fan too. I'm about a 3, and I'll probably be a 3 until after the transfer deadline, and then I'll probably start ramping up from there, depending on just so many things that happen. For me, I would be more worried if we lost out on Lavia and we didn't go for Caicedo. And my logic to that is pretty much this. I'm pretty sure after Lavia, reports saying that Liverpool willing to go back in for 60 million. Liverpool had put the Lavia deal aside after last week, and they wrong Brighton and said, let's see if we can do a deal for Caicedo. They tried to do a deal for Caicedo, didn't work out. We lost Lavia. We know they are willing to spend money on a player. We know they are willing to, that Jurgen, and the rest of that transfer team, head of stats, head of scouting, head of the medical department, they know they have the money sitting there. They have 111 at least million pounds just sitting there that they can play with. I would be more worried if I felt that we were running out of money, if we had no money. But we know we have the money. So all it's really going to come down to is, can they do a deal before the window comes down? I think they will. I think they're going to try and do 2 players. I get what Kev's saying about the idea of contingency. If there's one thing we do know about Liverpool's transfers over the past few years, is that they're always looking at different players at the same time. And I think it's interesting about the Caicedo deal that Billy Hogan was doing negotiations, not Schmatke. So that gives me, I would speculate in many ways, that's because they figured out they may be being played here. So they told Jorg, go ahead and start looking at the alternative. Who will our alternatives? Get those alternatives lined up as soon as possible. If we get to Bournemouth and we've had no new news by then, i.e. there's been not even just official announcements, but nothing in the works at all, I'll start to slowly ramp up a little bit. I'd go from a 3 to about a 5. But at this moment in time, there's just absolutely no need to panic because the transfer window hasn't shut. Once the transfer window shuts in, if nothing happens, I disagree with Ben. I don't think they will put the wall away because I think everyone realizes they need a position they need to fill.
Yeah.
I don't think they'll do that. If that does happen, oh my God, the next 4 months are going to be absolutely insane. Just not even watching the games, just trying to have a conversation about this is going to be absolutely insane as well. And you definitely know if nothing happens by January, everyone's just going to absolutely get their chip out and just be just absolutely lose it as well, which is, again, understandable. But I'm a 3. I've seen enough from this team to know that we can compete and we can beat anyone. Consequently, we could probably also be beaten by anybody. But from what I saw from that Chelsea game, we already look way better than we did last year, apart from obviously the issues we've talked about, Jota, Gakpo, Nunez, all that as well. Players have gotten better. If we were getting worse, I would be worried. But I know now that we have the potential to win it all. We just need to have those 1 or 2 players that are going to elevate us, i.e. carry the piano, so our wonderful players can play it.
Yeah. And Stig, before we move on, you're not getting out of this because you're the host. We would like to know where you are on the. Don't think you can just give a little kidney blowout to all of us. and not get involved yourself.
It's my job to ask the questions. I don't answer
Don't
them.
say we're running over either. So
no, we're not running over. We're going to we're not. I'm going to go a little bit longer today because JMU's put something in the chat that I am going to point out, and it's do some extra time. And I think we should start calling it now extra time going forward for some questions with chat. So what I'm going to ask everybody in the chat to do is, while I give my opinion on the panic meter before we finish up, fire in your questions. We'll take about 4 or 5 of them, maybe a little bit more depending, and we'll throw them to the panel here. So start firing in some questions there now, and I'll start starring a couple of them while I'm giving my opinion on as well. And we also like to announce that we have a very lovely guest appearance from Mr. John Henry himself. He'd like you to hit those like buttons. And he said that he'll get his wallet out if we hit 300. So let's go for that. And also he thinks that Florentino Luis is the only option now in his opinion. Thank you so much for your opinion, John. That's very valued. I hope the flight back to Boston wasn't too strenuous on you after coming all the way to Stamford Bridge and watching the stadium fall down around you. So, in my own personal opinion, I'm mixed because I'm in a position where I would feel like I'm happy that yesterday's game happened when it did, but I'm also not happy about it at the same time. I'm happy yesterday's game happened when it did purely because this was the kick up the ass that we needed to get. And this was clearly evident that a subpar team that is Chelsea, and we can call them what they want, and it's difficult enough to go and get points in Chelsea, in Stamford Bridge. We can call them what we want. But realistically, we've drawn every game that we've been there so far for the past number of years, and it was hard enough to get a point from there to begin with. So we can call it consistent, but at the same time, the scoreline doesn't reflect how good of a team we put out as compared to how good of a team they put out. The better team didn't win that game, and I feel like Chelsea could have scored 4 in that game, if not for Alisson, who was my own personal man of the match. I put myself on a panic rating somewhat between yourself, Kev, and Ben. I'm on about a 6.5 because the cracks of last season are still there. We haven't done anything to really fix it. We fixed the availability problem and brought in quality players in the likes of your Szoboszlai and your McAllister, who play 95% of the games, as opposed to Huijbek's legs, Naby Keita, and Oxlade-Chamberlain, who just signed for Besiktas for a 3-year deal. Congratulations to him. But I'm on a 6.5, 7 because the cracks are still there. And thank you, James. 7 draws in a row against Chelsea. It's if you ever wanted to bet on a Chelsea game with Liverpool, bet on a draw and bet on the yellow cards this season to be on the over as well. I think the Newcastle game had 8. But to get back to the point, I'm on about a 6.5, a 7 because the cracks are still there from last season. We haven't directly addressed the problem of depth at the centre-back position on the left-hand side and a CDM role. If Fabinho was still here and coming back to himself, I wouldn't necessarily be as worried about it, but the fact that both him and Henderson are gone, that pushes me a little bit higher towards the 7 on it. So I'm not hitting the panic button yet. It's the first game of the season. I'm happy that sort of a kick up the ass happened, but at the same time, I'm kind of like, we need to sort this out. We need to pull the finger out, or else we're going to be 10 points down by January, and then there's no hope back for anything there or of any type. So there was 1 or 2 questions that I pinged here. One of them is in relation to Lavia. Why did he change his mind? Money. That's why he changed his mind.
8-year contract.
And a bigger contract. 8-year contract, tried to change his mind. If you were offered 8 years at a different company for triple the wage, I'm pretty sure you'd take it as well.
Can we talk about that for a second? I swear to God, Chelsea have no plan. Like this team is Tom Bowley has spent $1 billion, and Chelsea's team still needs like 5 more players, and they need a striker to forward. Like this entire transfer saga to me is absolutely insane because even though like people will say that Liverpool's in the mud and everything XYZ, like Chelsea have absolutely no plan for these players. You're signing 2 players that have 20 appearance difference for the same position for £175 million, and none of them score goals. Like, it's absolutely insane. I'm sorry, I just have to get that on my chest. Like, I've never seen a team that spends so much money and have no plan since like Manchester City in 2008.
Just on that, just to you here and anyone on in the comments, those who follow Tom Bowley and his teams and in America, is he is this similar to what he does in his own sports? And
yeah, because it's baseball.
Yeah.
So
absolutely.
So putting these people on big contracts.
Yeah. Because a baseball player will last for the guts. Like, you have starting pitchers that are 35, nearly 40, and they've been in the pro league since they were 25 earlier, and even younger than that, they've been in minor leagues. So you would pay a guy $200 million, $300 million, but you stretch it out over 10 years. It's happening in the NFL now as well. Patrick Mahomes got a $500 million contract over 10 years. But see, the thing about it is that in those US markets, the salary cap, it's not applicable to baseball, but the salary cap goes up every year, more or less, depending on the income of the league. The NFL 10 years ago, a quarterback was never getting paid anything more than $15 to $20 million a season. Now they're getting $50 million a season. It has exploded, and it's gone exponential. And funnily enough, Patrick Mahomes, when he signed that contract, people made fun of the fact that they were going to be tight for money, but now he's the 8th highest paid quarterback in the league while being on $50 million a year, and that's before a gentleman by the name of Joe Burrow signs his contract, and so signs his extension, should I say. So the money is ridiculous. He's going by American rules, and yes, there's no cap in baseball. I was more so referring to NFL. It's nuts the way that they do the contracts over there, and it's all guaranteed.
But it's the negative side in football, being that when it comes to these players, he won't be able to move them on or push them on. So the actual assets itself just dissolves away. So there's no actual gain as such. Or am I looking at that too
No, you're looking at it in the right way. The way that I see and how Chelsea are going to actually implode from this is, it's all well and good giving your players 8-year, 9-year, 10-year contracts. They flop in 2 years. You have to buy them out of that contract. Harry Maguire, is the best example of that. Him going to David Moyes and West Ham is perfect. The perfect example of that, because he's taking 90 grand a week pay cut. He's going from 190 grand a week to 100 grand. And by them getting Champions League, that's why he went up to that amount.
How will he survive?
Oh, I don't know. We'll all chip in from. We'll start a GoFundMe.
If you follow Todd Bowley's career in his financial career as well as his sporting career, pretty much his entire strategy is disruption and trying to benefit from disruption. Look for a loophole, throw in a lot of disruption and benefit from it. That's how he built the Dodgers in 2 years. And then they won one World Series, and now they've collapsed because they have all these ridiculous contracts they can't move on.
Mookie Betts is the perfect example of that, because that's why FSG don't like Todd Bowley. FSG own the Boston Red Sox, which is just outside of Dan's living room. So Fenway Park is just sitting there, and their development is happening right in front of him. So he gets a front row seat at all of Liverpool's earnings being pumped into his community.
Hey! Now we've seen the books. We know that money's not coming to me. Believe me, I wish it was.
Dan is on the FSG payroll. We all know it, but so Mookie Betts was a shortstop. Was he a shortstop or is he center fielder? He can play multiple positions, and he wanted a big contract. And he wanted to retire with the Boston Red Sox, and they wouldn't pay him. So in comes Mr. Bowley with his big golden silver locks and says, I'll pay you. He's had 2 good seasons of production, but now he's on a big fat contract. He can't move him because of the trade. And he's useless now. He's not performing, and he's getting injuries, and he's not really performing all that well. But anyways, we've rambled enough about the finances and our hatred of certain people.
Sorry.
No, we're okay. I mean, it was an interesting topic to discuss for a little bit. We'll move on to the questions though. So there's the first one that was the Lavia. Why did he change his mind? We've gone through that one. Then the one after that is from Devin, and I'll give this one to Ben. Do Liverpool need to adjust to the market and start handing out 8-year contracts to get the signings over the line, much the same as Chelsea have done? No. I'll put a 2 cents into this just beforehand before I give it to Ben. The reason that Chelsea can do this is because they're not in a European competition. We can't do it because we're in a European competition. Chelsea finished in outside of European places last year. The rule is in UEFA tournaments, you cannot have players on more than 5-year contracts, which is what was doing the rounds on Twitter not too long ago. I guess that kind of answers the question. But if we were able to do something like that, Ben, do you think is there much point in handing out these massive big baseball contracts, or is it actually quite counterproductive?
No, I think it's counterproductive, and I just think no one's guaranteed to be like massively successful. No one's guaranteed, and an 8-year contract, just crazy, isn't it? Absolutely crazy.
They're one ACL injury away from that contract being void.
It's just imagine you could have especially with the wages that Chelsea are paying as well. You could have 350 grand, 320 grand just sat on the bench doing absolutely nothing. I hope that I've got no interest in stupidly long contracts like that, and I hope they get the book thrown at them at some point.
No, I would agree with you in relation. I think the book needs to be thrown at them between themselves and Man City, and I think Arsenal have a bit of shady deals as well. And I think only for them finishing second last year, it's kind of covered it up a little bit with their earnings. I think either FFP and profit and sustainability either needs to pull the finger out and start charging these guys, or there's no point in it being there anymore. It's just it's utterly pointless. It's guidelines rather than rules. Dan, a question that I'll give to yourself that's come here from Stuart. Would anyone take Nunes at Wolves at this point? I think the club is in full panic mode now and wouldn't be surprised if that's our new DM. Does that sort of seem like something that could happen in your eyes, or is that something that we shouldn't be even touching with a 10-foot pole?
It could happen, but I don't think it would. He's not exactly the player that you need in a defensive mid. Again, I just want to say what we need is just someone to win the ball and pass it 5 yards. Nunez is more of a box-to-box midfielder. It's the same thing with Ryan Gravenberch. Listen, they're great players. I would love to have them. But right now, if you're sitting in that Liverpool transfer room, if you're an analyst, if you're Jurgen Klopp, if you're York Schmacker, you're like, how do we get someone who's just going to carry water for us and pass the ball 5 yards? That's really what we need right now.
Yeah, it's and as James points out here, Chelsea are either innovating and changing how contracts will be implemented or will financially crumble. And I would be of the opinion of the latter happening there. I think they will financially crumble because if some of these players that are on these massive contracts don't work out, they can't move them because they have to pay them off. Similar to how Man United have to pay £5 million to get rid of Harry Maguire. They're getting £30 million from West Ham, but they have to pay $5 million to get rid of him. Think about how these other contracts will have to go where you have to pay 5 years worth of it off. He doesn't have all that much of a time left. Now, we'll do a couple of more questions and then we'll finish up because it's a big question I want to get to at the end. Next one that we get to is from the most beautifully named person I can find here, Monkey Chops. Kev, I'll give this one to yourself. Do you think based on how good Newcastle look that we need to have a DM signed before we play them? To be perfectly honest with you, I think we need a DM signed tomorrow. What do you think?
I totally agree. I'll be honest, I was quite impressed how they played and how especially Sangare played. I thought he was exceptional for someone who wasn't happy being there. He looked well and truly. I'll be honest, we need to get ourselves sorted for that game because they do look as though until the Champions League start, because I do see them faltering due to them being in the top four. I'm probably going to have a heavy schedule within the Champions League and a difficult group, so to speak. So for me, I want us to have something in place, definitely.
Yeah, it is something that needs to be in place before the Bournemouth game at minimum, I think.
Definitely.
And thank you so much, guys. We're only 15 subs off 8.9k. We'll keep doing a couple more questions. We'll see if we can get it before the end of the stream. Hopefully, we'll do 2 or 3 more questions, and then we have our big one then at the end that I'm going to save and reserve because I think it's a very important question that needs to be asked. And it's done by Jay Muse. Hopefully, they're still here because I want to get an answer to this question. Ben, with how everything's kind of gone, given the 111 million purse that we know we have at minimum, if that isn't spent, do you think people will start protesting outside Anfield if we don't get anybody or don't spend it?
No, I don't think that we will, but I think that there will be an absolute uproar inside the ground before and after kickoff because you can probably tell in the way that I'm reacting to the question. I do genuinely believe that they will put that purse away, and I don't think we won't sign no one. I just think that we're going to sign something that's not what we need. And I do reckon there'll be a backlash if we don't get what we need. So yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Minnie. Now down to 14. Thank you so much for subscribing. Please do like and share the video as well. Dan, we'll get to you for the third to last question. Do you think with Jörg Schmachtel being fired from the cannon into the Irish Sea by me, preferably, do you think that we'll be looking for a new sporting director? And would we be ringing Michael Edwards and begging him on our hands and knees to come back and please fix us?
Well, one, I think they're just not going to renew Schmatka unless there's a situation where they are not able to promote someone internally. I think there could be an idea that Edwards comes back. I mean, Edwards hasn't taken another job. He said he just wanted some time off. Obviously, you could bring Edwards back on an interim basis. Hey, just come back for a year because we just want you to train this person to come in as well. I mean, the whole thing with Schmatka in many ways is that he was meant to be temporary. And so I felt that at the beginning of the transfer window, that worked out very well because they had a plan. And then that plan fell apart the instant we lost Hendo and Fabs. So now they're kind of stuck in a situation where they had a short-term plan. It fell apart. Now they have to do another short-term plan for the long-term plan as well. I don't think they'll bring an outside person in unless it's Edwards. And I think the next permanent sporting director will be someone internally. That's usually how we do things. We don't usually bring someone in from the outside.
Yeah, I'd agree. And I play games for Hunt here. Now let's look at Chelsea. Had a commitment of over $1 billion invested in the squad, and they're doing so. Don't forget the commercially don't forget the commercially a profit margin magnet. So imagine a long-term deal and 3 comes good. Like, I get where you're coming from, but realistically, they're not doing anything sustainable at the moment. Unfortunately, they spent near €1 billion on transfers from summer 2022 to now. So in a 12-month span, they spent $1 billion. They have no shirt sponsor. They have no European football. They were in a relegation battle last year. That's not a sustainable business model.
And the bridge is falling apart. They need to rebuild it. It's only 40,000 people. Like, Chelsea do not make anywhere near the revenue that Liverpool make. It's almost, I think it's almost, last time it was like almost 125 million pounds in revenue. Like, Chelsea don't even make as near as much as Liverpool do in revenue. And that's not even considering the European competition. That's just commercial.
Yeah, it's bonkers. And one question that we're going to get to, Abdullah Latif is here, and I'll give an answer to this one because it's something about the formations that I do like. This is the second last question. The last one is a big one, and I hope everybody sticks around for it. What do you think of getting a centre back and playing 3 or 5 in the back? Much similar to what Chelsea did. I would agree with you. I think that is something that I actually mentioned at the start of last season that we need to do, purely from the fact of how the midfield is not be done. Because first of all, that helps Robbo get up and down the pitch. He likes running up and down. We'd have our 3 centre backs then, which I think would lead to the fact of us getting a left-sided centre back in relation to an Inacio, or even if you wanted to go on the right-hand side and get a Benjamin Pavard. Both of them would look quite good. A back 5, however, I'm not sure how it would implement. It might clog the midfield a little bit, but it could also help us on the counter. If we were to get caught quickly, it's an interesting one. I genuinely think we need a left-sided centre-back so that we can fall into a back 3 and allow Trent to go into that inverted role. But again, I think we need diversity in how we line up our players, because realistically, it's going to be tough to break teams down because they're going to sit back. They've seen how they can beat us. All they need to do is survive the first 20 minutes to a half an hour, and they can then sit back and we kind of run ourselves into the ground then trying to break them down, which is again why I want Núñez to start up front and Gakpo to sit a little bit behind him in a false 9-10 role there in a centre attacking midfielder role. But yes, I do think we need another centre back to play a back 3, if not a back 5, and if not, it allows us way more flexibility for somebody to go onto that left hand side and give Robbo either a break or the license to get up and down the pitch like he likes to do. Now, and the last question, and I'm glad there's nearly 600 people in here to see this, and I hope everybody answers this question with an astounding yes, and that they're going to vote for him. When are you going to run for Parliament?
Not a chance, mate. All I do is I just waffle. So yeah, maybe I should go for.
Yeah, I think you should go. You'd be perfect.
Not a chance. They don't need a John Higgins lookalike in there, mate. So I'm quite happy to stay on the stream, sadly.
Well, guys, thank you so much for coming. We will be back again tomorrow at 7:30 in the evening. And as Jay Muse has asked, we will have Kev as president by the end of the year in the next electoral term. I'm Irish and I don't even get to vote in the UK. I'd like to thank Brian for his donation. I'd like to thank Tane Jose, Jen, as always, Maddie again, and Yoshimitsu for the first one as well. Thank you so much, guys. It's been an absolute pleasure, as always. We have been Dan, Ben, Kev, and myself, Stephen. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope everybody has a lovely evening, and we see you guys tomorrow. Bye-bye.